Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all of you for attending this session. So today, here is the agenda of the presentation. We will start with an introduction of PolyPeptide Group, and then we will see some of the projects that we have open at PolyPeptide to finish with a take-home message. So PolyPeptide, we have a global presence. We are present in Europe, USA, but also India. We are global leader in pipeline with more than 200 active projects. We have more than 1,000 therapeutic peptide manufactured. We are more actually than 1,300 colleagues. This is the head count at the end of 2024. Now we are expanding, we are even more. And going to our capacity, we do LPPS, SPPS. SPPS, we have reactor up to 1,600 liters. LPPS even more, we speak about above 6,000 liters. Concerning the isolation, we use different techniques such as precipitation, crystallization, and spray drying. And purification downstream process, we have columns that go up to 80 centimeters of diameters, and of course, ion exchange and exclusion chromatography. This is a bit to present you how we are organized. We have 3 commercial sites in Malmö, Sweden, in Torrance, US, and in Ambermath in India. We have 2 pipeline building sites, one in the US in San Diego, and one in Strasbourg, where I work. And then we have large-scale facilities in Belgium, in Braine-l'Alleud. So now we enter in the part where I present some project of PolyPeptide. So first of all, I feel this, you saw it probably several times by now, but it's important to focus on the importance of peptide market, which is a market that underwent an exponential growth. We passed from a market of $45 billion in 2023, which is expected to grow to triplicate for 2030 with an annual growth rate above 10%. So here in this graph, you can understand why is that appetizing the peptide market, because now, okay, there is this boom, this rush to the gold, as it called it, Fernando, Professor Albericio, when we were in Porto in another congress. But who knows if in some year there will be another thing, not GLP-1. If you look at this graph, for example, the smallest piece of the cake, 7% infectious disease. But actually, antimicrobial peptide are something that it's more and more studies due to the resistance and so on. So, and it touches several classes of disease. So that's why also it's very appetite. Then, of course, all the characteristics of peptide drugs in comparison to small molecules and so on. Here, just to show you that the topic that are going to see today are basically the combination of 2 main groups, which are from one side, optimized chemistry, from the other side, process design, automation, and advanced control. But also, as it has been previously mentioned, it's important, even more now with this pending larger demand, to think about green chemistry or greener, if we can do 100% green. Here is some of the topics that we will see. Starting from the first one, high-capacity SPPS resin. So here schematized a classical SPPS resin mid with the X, which stands for the coupling site, the elongation sites. So one of the easiest approach to do to improve production, to increase production, is very simply choosing an high-loaded resin. But as we were saying before, higher loading resin, this has a limitation. There are some thresholds that we have to respect, and we cannot go above some values, very depending from the project and so on, but it's a trend. In particular, we have a higher risk of aggregation. I mean, if we call it, according to the discussion that we were having before, aggregation, or in any case, collapsing on the peptide on the resin, that which leads to a pure quality peptide, so bottleneck complication in DSP. Reactor size limitation, because at some point, you know that if we start with a medium-low resin, at the end we will have certain volume of peptidyl resin, but if the resin is much higher in terms of loading, there will be more peptide, and then the resin will occupy more space. And also sourcing, because sometimes it's not possible to find all the resin. Okay, this less and less, because on the market now we can find almost everything, but could be a problem to find exactly the resin at the loading wanted, amide, acid resin, and so on. So, but still, it's an important approach to this thing that we could increase the resin loading. So PolyPeptide developed in-house resin with a optimized branched system. This resin, in comparison to classical high-load lignin, present an increased volumetric capacity and less solvent consumption that we will see in a few seconds. What does it mean? Better kinetics, because due to the presence of a spacer and the branching system, the group, the sites are more available to get in touch with the amino acid that we are coupling, and also all the process, which are the protection, cleavage, are the situation is more favorable, I would say. And also we were able to develop the resin, acid, amide, and with several degrees of branching according again to each one more indicated for each project. So if you have a look to the three examples here in a graph, swelling, elongation, amino acid coupling. So the one in the middle, classical medium low loading resin, will have this trend. So this is schematized. That is just to give an idea. We will have increasing of the swelling, increasing of the volume occupied, each amino acid that we couple. In case of too loaded resin, it could happen this shrinking phenomena, which is not a shrinking wanted to clean the resin from the solvent in excess, but is a shrink of some problem that is going on during your synthesis. And if we have to place our resin in this graph, we would have something like this. Of course, a bit higher in terms of volume occupied from a low-loaded resin, but ideally not shrinking, and at some point we reach kind of this a plateau that during the elongation. If we have an example with number to show you this concept of increased volumetric capacity and less solvent consumption. So let's take an example. Let's start two syntheses in parallel with 1 kilo of dry resin with the same loading. The green one, the high loaded, and the in-house polypeptide resin, both 1 kilo 0.9 millimole gram. So after SPPS, we will have peptidyl resin swelled, which occupy in the first case the totality of the reactor. In our case, it will be much less. This is the definition, in fact, of volumetric capacity. It's the amount of crude peptide isolated divided by the number of the final protected peptidyl resin. And evidence showed that our resin at the end swelled much less than an high-loaded resin. So from both, it's the same synthetic scale, so we will get 1 kilo, for example, of crude peptide, but the reactor, for the case of high capacity, in the case of high-loaded resin, it's full. In our case, we have still space, so potentially we could start with more dry resin and at the end get up to 3 times more of peptide. And if you look back at the graph here, you see this DMF economy, the gap between the high-loaded resin and the in-house polypeptide resin, it's actually economy in terms of solvent, because if you don't increase the synthetic scale, so you see you need less DMF to fully cover the resin and to continue your synthesis. This is the resin, this is the branching degrees that we propose in our development program. The black one is a classical resin that we used as reference, and then there are 3 degrees of branching available. This is an example, is a case study on a 15 amino acid peptide, and as you can see that even bearing this new branching system, we don't have new added impurity. The profile is quite the same in the 4 cases. Okay, in the most branched one, let's say, this kind of small deletion sequence that it's added, but more or less it's quite nice profile in the 4 cases. Now we are currently testing them on larger scale on GLP-1 peptide, because as you know, it's different from a 15 amino acid peptide to bigger peptide. But we could say that this is an approach for process intensification. There is also a kind of solvent reduction and GLP-1 approved. Passing to the second project, PFAS-free. So as you know, PFAS are becoming more and more a problem in all the type of chemistry, but especially in peptide chemistry, because this molecule, TFA, it's widely used, essential for peptide chemistry. Until 2021, the regulatory authorities, the regulation was a bit different, were considered PFAS just big organic molecules bearing fluorine atoms everywhere, such as PFOS. But lately, since by now more than 15 years, every molecule which has CF3 or even CH2 is considered PFAS, so among them TFA. These are very dangerous molecules because of the persistent toxicity, are called forever chemicals. Health risks are related to cancer, immunogenic disease. It's very difficult to eliminate from the body. To remove from few ppm, it takes 5 years to the human body to remove a few ppm of PFAS from the blood. And we are assisting to more and more restrictions from the authorities. Beginning of 2026, we will have new ones also. So as I said, you understand that in peptide chemistry, TFA, it's the basis. We use it to cleave the peptide from the resin. We use it in downstream processes such as, of course, purification, because the buffer are with small percentage of TFA, in quality control, to do analysis, and so on. PolyPeptide is actively working on trying to replace TFA with valid alternatives. In particular, here I'm going to present you a replacement of TFA in cleavage processes. This is a work that has been published in 2024. Basically, we discovered that suitable combination of a Bronsted and a Lewis acid make possible to cleave a peptide from the resin. This is just the abstract of the publication. You see it was an example on 10 amino acid peptide. It works with several types of linkers. It works for the global protection to several several amino acids, among them arginine with PBF, which is one of the most hard group to remove during cleavage. Concerning the numbers, we can reach up to the 80% of cleavage range at 45 degrees and a crude purity up to the 92%. Now I will show you a case study. This is IBEA-CP peptide. With the condition, we compare the two conditions, TFA classic condition and our TFA-free condition. In this case, the Lewis acid was iron chloride and the Bronsted acid was HCl. Okay, we lost a bit in terms of field and on purity, but it's a difficult challenge to replace TFA right now in peptide chemistry, and you can see that are quite correct data. Lately, our colleagues from Malmo developed also applied this approach on GLP-1 peptide. So we have also an example, because until now it was on short peptide. Now we have also some example on longer peptide, notably GLP-1. And also important to mention that this is getting more and more importance, this topic, in the scientific community. Lately it has been released a paper from Professor Albericio and co-worker. So it's getting more and more importance in the scientific community. Even here, green approach and GLP-1 approved. The third project that I want to show to you is percolation and inline monitoring. So, as you know, DMF, it's one of the most expensive things when we have a large production in a peptide batch. Among all the amount of DMF used, the 75% is wasted in classical batch washing during washing steps. So it's a major challenge and a very important challenge to find alternatives. In PolyPeptide, we routinely used percolation washing to replace classical batch washing. A classical batch washing, we add DMF, we agitate, we dry completely, we do it again until we reach the specification of content of piperidine. Percolation washing, here there is the animation, it explained a bit how it works. We add portion of solvents, we dry until a minimum high, we don't dry completely, then we do it again, and basically fresh DMF push down all the, let's say, dirty DMF containing piperidine. But how this can, which are the values, which gains we have during percolation over classical batch washing? Here there is a case study, it's a customer project, 14 amino acid peptide in a 600 liters reactor. So you can see the blue one is the batch washing and the green one is percolation. Of course, the trend is different. Each, square of the blue one, it's basically a batch washing, an addition and a drain cycle, while percolation, it's more like it has this trend because the amount of piperidine, it decreases following this trend, not like for the batch washing. So we have, see if we compare the two techniques, in the first case, batch washing, above 1,000 kilos of DMF used, and to reach less than 100 ppm of piperidine, it took us 90 minutes, while with percolation, we used less than the half of DMF, and we did it in 3 times less time. So 52% of DMF saved and 3 times faster. More than this, what we implement and developed in our Malmo sites is the association of, in a large-scale reactor of 600 liters, an inline monitor, because usually the content is checked doing chloranil test. It's offline test. There is an operator. It stops. We take a sample. We perform chloranil test. If it's positive, we wash again. If it's negative, it's okay. What we did here, we combined with inline monitoring. So we have automatized the process. Doesn't mean by using near spectroscopy. So even here we have process intensification, solvent reduction, and automation of the process. Now, these 2 days of conference, we saw a lot of very interesting new approaches that are widely used from other CDMO of purification to purifying downstream. So this is another major challenge that is very important, because how it was classical batch purification, this is the classical approach. What we do is solubilize our crude peptides. We charge a column. We have our peptide diluting, we collect several fractions, and we do it several times until we don't purify the whole batch of crude peptide. As you can see in the classical approach, you will have at the end of the day, first of all, there is the need of always a person there checking, collecting, and analyzing. But you will have also at the end of the day a lot of samples to check. PolyPeptide has his own approach, which we call the intensified chromatography. So what we do in comparison to the classic batch washing is basically we presolubilize the whole amount of peptide that we intend to purify that day or that days. There is a pump system that transports it to the column. And we start the gradient and we start to collect fraction. We just collect 3 fractions. One in the middle, which is the good one, the pure peptide. Right side, left side, which are the mixed fraction. So at the end, we have just 3, let's say, tanks with fractions. So it's 3 analyses already in comparison to the huge number of the classical batch purification. Of course, then, if we consider to recycle the mixed fraction, we can do inline dilution. We are working on the inline dilution and repurify it, or there are also cases where it's not worth. But so the worst case is we will have 9 IPC in comparison to already here the example for tank fraction we are at 30, and also an automation, because we just need somebody in the morning that prepare everything, solubilize, start the process, and then it goes alone. We don't have to do anything. We save 2 shifts, okay? So even here, process intensification and automation. Last project that I want to show you is modular approach. So what is modular approach? Modular approach, it's basically the use of modules, which are standardized unit, pre-built units, which are used to expand rapidly and in a more economic way, in a less expensive way, production facilities. The advantages, of course, is the cost, because it's less expensive than a real implementation of a building. The efficiency, because do you imagine there is something that is called coactivity. If you are in the middle of a production, we need to do a changement. So the only way is, without module, stop the production to do changement in the building and so on. With this approach, it's very simple. We just add a further module and we avoid to stop, and we can do this without without the need to stop and so on. And also, of course, we have a quicker answer to the change of the market, because if you have to do again some modification, just adding modules, it's much faster. And here there is just a video to show you maybe how. So this has been implemented in the Malmo sites, and we doubled our SPPS capacity in Malmo thanks to the modular approach. And here there is just a video that I want to show you, very short. So you can see the modules are really prepared as much as possible and driven to the sites and just taken and put. It's like a coast run, you know? So we double our SPPS capacity in Malmo. Then, of course, the modules, we have to connect among them. There is few things to do at the end, the connection, the junctures, and so on. But the biggest part of the work, it's already done once the modules are delivered. Okay, so just take-home message to conclude, to finish. I feel to say that this increasing of peptide demand, the answer to this increase of peptide demand is just not matter to who builds the biggest reactor, because of course, very beautiful to have huge reactors to guarantee huge production, but there are pro and contra. Because do you imagine a huge reactor, a production in a huge reactor which failed? Which is the economic impact that we have if such a big production is not brought to the end? So at PolyPeptide, we have the idea that this, of course, building bigger things, but also with innovative manufacturing technologies and approaches. So, as I said, innovative optimized chemistry, but also brand new processes, automation, and advanced control. These are our values, which are throughput, sustainability, reproducibility, and reliability. And also, PolyPeptide anticipates the evolution of the market, thanks also to this last modular approach that we saw. So this is the innovation and technology team where I work, is based in Strasbourg, but of course the project that I presented are the collaboration with all our colleagues from all the different sites. So I thank you for your attention.